Good morning, everyone. As Kristen said, my name's Arlene Schiff. I am a nurse and I'm an education specialist with Elderwerks. So again, been working in the healthcare field my whole career, but working with seniors and their families and guiding them through this aging journey that we're all on for the past 20. So I, again, thank you for joining us today and we'll get started. So let me start with a simple question for you all to think about. When was the last time someone made you smile, shared a meaningful conversation? These everyday moments of connection, they matter more than we sometimes even realize. You know, they support our well-being, our mind, our body, and our spirit. So today we'll talk about loneliness and isolation and what they really mean and how they can affect our health. And most importantly, what we each can do to stay connected and support one another. You know, sometimes it's really the smallest gestures, whether it's a call, a smile, a shared laugh, that really can make the biggest difference. So today, you know, I hope you'll have a few new ideas for staying connected. We'll talk about isolation and loneliness and explain the differences. We're going to talk a little about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how unmet needs impact our feelings of isolation and loneliness. We'll talk about the human connection and how connection supports our brain and body. We'll also explore some different ways to build connection and joy and see how music and laughter and touch can be used as healing tools. And then we'll also share some practical resources and community-based tools to support older adults in staying connected and reducing isolation. So let's talk a little bit about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think everybody's probably heard of this. So in order to understand loneliness and isolation and how important connection is, it helps to think about what every human needs to feel safe, secure, and ultimately connected. And Maslow was a psychologist, and he described these needs as a pyramid, and starting at the bottom with our most basic needs and then building upward. So if you take a look at the base, these are our survival needs: food, water, shelter, warmth, rest, safety. And without these, it's really hard to focus on anything else. So once we feel safe and cared for, then we begin to crave that connection, that love, that friendship and belonging. And then you move up the pyramid. So then that's the middle of the pyramid. And that's what we're talking about today. So when people don't have their basic or safety needs met, for example, they're struggling with their health or finances or their housing, it's harder to reach that feeling of belonging. So for many older adults, especially those living alone or potentially coping with an illness, that can lead to loneliness and isolation. But the good news is when we help meet those lower needs, like providing safety, stability, and support, then we can open that door for connection and that door for friendship and purpose, and we start to grow again. So when we think about loneliness, you know, it's not just about being alone. It's often about even missing one of the needs of what you see in the lower pyramid. So helping someone feel secure and valued can often be the first step to helping them feel connected. So let's talk now a little bit about social isolation. It's more than feeling lonely. Social isolation really occurs when someone has little or no contact with other people, and it can occur over long or short periods of time, but it's a physical state. And isolation can really be characterized by staying home most of the time or even all of the time, refusing interpersonal interaction, avoiding social situations, and it can have a lot of negative emotional effects, increased sadness, restlessness, and loneliness. So while isolation can cause loneliness, the two don't always occur together because you can find yourself socially isolated for various reasons. So think about, what do you think can cause social isolation for older adults in your community? There's loss of a spouse, there's mobility issues, possibly transportation issues. You might have caregiving responsibilities, hearing loss, even a decrease in your vision, fear of falling. There's many thoughts to that. And social isolation is much more than just feeling lonely. It's a lack of regular contact or connection with other people. And sometimes it's a very gradual occurrence, or it can be something sudden, after a move, an illness, or the loss of a loved one. And over time, people may start staying home more, stop attending social gatherings, family gatherings, and they may lose touch with family and friends. Then social isolation can then lead to emotional effects like sadness, low energy, or restlessness. It's important to remember, though, that isolation and loneliness aren't the same. Someone can live alone and feel perfectly content, while another person can be, surrounded by people and still feel lonely. But again, older adults, isolation can come from a variety of causes, as I've mentioned. So when people are isolated, they have less access to support. There's fewer safety checks. There's less joy in their daily life. So recognizing these patterns early can help us step in as family members, as friends, or even as professionals. And it's important then to reconnect before isolation can lead to loneliness or a decline in health. So when you think about loneliness, when do you think people are most likely to feel lonely? Anybody have a thought on that? You can type it in the chat. And I'll pause for a second, but I'll start talking if we don't see too many people participating. Um, so people maybe will feel lonely, during the holidays, um, after the loss of a loved one, retirement, that can be a big change. There might be a new move. There might be illness. Family might have moved away. Your kids might have moved away. But loneliness isn't about feeling alone, or being physically alone, I shouldn't say. It's about the feeling of alone. And it's a deep sense of being disconnected or even, truly not understood. Because you can be in a room full of people and still feel lonely if you don't have that connection. So loneliness can happen to anyone, any age. Often you see that it's shaped by life experiences like losing a partner or retiring and dealing with health challenges. But it's important to remember that loneliness is a feeling and isolation is a situation. So you can be isolated without feeling lonely, and you can even feel lonely even when you're surrounded by others. But when we recognize loneliness in ourselves or others, we can begin to take small steps. That phone call, that visit, joining a group, rebuilding that sense of belonging. And we need to remember that even simple actions, or interactions can remind us that we're not alone. So just wanted to show you this, that, while social isolation and loneliness are different, they often overlap, and they both can affect our health. Social isolation is about what's happening around us. It's, again, when someone has very few social connections or goes for long periods of time without interacting with others. It's what we would call an objective situation. And loneliness is about what's happening inside of us. It's a feeling of being alone, even if we're surrounded by people. So, can one exist without the other? Yes. And, the National Institute of Health, according to them, loneliness and isolation are different but related. Loneliness is an emotional state. And, it can be caused by breakups, divorce, moving, the loss of a loved one or close friend. So you think about, have you ever been in a crowded room and not knowing anyone? That feeling at that moment in time is loneliness. And older adults are at a higher risk for social isolation and loneliness due to our changes in health and social connections that can come with growing older. And just again, to remind you, your hearing. So make sure you have your hearing checked. Vision, if you're not seeing as well, have these things checked out. As we age, there can be normal aging with some signs of memory loss that might prevent somebody from getting together with other people. There might be a disability or difficulty in getting around or the loss of family and friends. So when you think about your family and your friends, remember some of these things and reach out. So the impact of social isolation and loneliness on older adults is pretty significant. Um, they really affect our whole health. And studies show that older adults who are isolated are more likely to experience memory problems, dementia. There are so many studies that show our brains do stay healthier when we're talking, when we're laughing, when we're engaging with others. So we also know that physically isolation raises the risk for heart disease, for high blood pressure, and even stroke. It can weaken the immune system, which means it takes longer to recover from an illness or an injury. Emotionally, people often feel more depressed, anxious, or disconnected when they don't have social contacts. And then it's this spiral. Then they lose interest in activities that maybe they once enjoyed, or they feel like they don't have purpose. But the good news is every bit of connection helps. That phone call, go for a walk with a friend, volunteering, join a group, participate in these types of webinars with other people. They can make a real difference in both your mental and your physical health. So when we talk about staying connected, it's not just about feeling good, it's really about staying healthy and living longer. So let's take a look at some of the personal risk factors, that some of them that we've discussed, that can increase a person's risk of being isolated. And sometimes isolation, again, doesn't happen all at once, but it builds slowly as life changes. There's a long-term illness, there's health challenges, there's disabilities. When mobility becomes limited, people may begin spending more time at home. There's transportation issues. If it's difficult to drive or even to get a ride, connecting becomes harder. So we want to be able to utilize things like Uber and Lyft. There can be major life changes, or you might be experiencing domestic violence. So we need to make sure that, those emotional changes and emotional health is taken care of. You might not have access to resources. That's why you have places like Elderwerks, and we'll list other resources as well. There could be language barriers, and there are lots of opportunities to connect with people, whether it's at a hospital or social work, that can help connect you with translators. that can help with these types of things. There might be remote working. You know, when we saw in the pandemic, remote working, there were lots of people suffering from social isolation. There might be socioeconomic issues that contribute, you know, or unemployment. People may feel unsafe in their neighborhood, or financial stress, or discrimination can make someone hesitate to participate in in a social life. There may be some mental health issues like depression, loss of a spouse or partner, being marginalized or discriminated against. Again, every person's story is unique, but recognizing these risk factors can help us all spot when, you know, someone that we care about might be starting to pull away. And again, good news is that with awareness and support, we can intervene early and help people reconnect before isolation starts to affect their health and their happiness. So, you know, think about what are some of the risk factors you've seen in your own life or in the people that you care for, that might make staying connected a little bit more difficult. Want to share, we have a few brief videos, want to share this brief video with you on loneliness in older adults.
So the concepts of loneliness and social isolation are distinct, but they're related, and they're important for people's overall well-being. In 2023, about 1 in 3 of older adults said that they had felt isolated from others during the past year. Now, this is much better than the 56% who reported feeling isolated during the early days of the pandemic, but it's not quite at the level that we saw in 2018, which was 27%. Social isolation and loneliness do not affect everyone equally, and some of the groups that are most affected include those who report fair or poor health, or have a chronic health condition or disability. Some of this could be related to difficulty leaving your home or being able to have meaningful social interactions on a regular basis. And those people are especially vulnerable to the health effects of isolation and loneliness. We've learned over the years how important our emotional well-being is to overall health. If you're lonely and isolated, you may not be eating well, you may not be sleeping well, you may not be getting out for exercise, and all of those things can have serious effects on things like cardiovascular disease, on diabetes, even cancer risk. So clinicians should be thinking about loneliness and social interaction as part of routine care and should be including those questions for all patients. And we can all do a better job of checking in with friends and family who may be isolated and feeling lonely. Check in on your parents, your grandparents, your neighbors. Ask them how they're doing. Go and visit them. Get a cup of coffee or even give them a phone call.
And if you're one of these people like me who likes statistics and understanding a little bit more about research, AARP has tremendous amount of information with regard to statistics as well as resources as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So we've looked at our personal risk factors. Let's talk about briefly some of the groups of people who are more vulnerable to social isolation and loneliness. Older adults, that's are naturally at higher risk, not necessarily because of age itself. It's more because of life changes that come with aging, like retirement and health challenges or losing loved ones that really can shrink our social circles. People who live alone, especially after the loss of a partner or spouse, may find it harder to stay connected. Those with hearing and vision loss may start to withdraw because communication becomes more difficult. Caregivers are a vulnerable group. They spend time caring for others and they often neglect their own social needs. People with chronic illnesses. Can't forget those who are marginalized or discriminated against because of income or race or ethnicity or language, gender identity, sexual orientation. The key point here is that social isolation doesn't discriminate and it can touch anyone, but some people do face more barriers than others. And the more we understand as a community who's most at risk, the better we can have the ability to reach out, include, and connect. And again, whether that's a neighbor, a friend, or someone in our own family. Want to talk briefly about our brain. It's built to connect, and when we connect with others, our brain releases feel-good chemicals. When we isolate, inflammation increases, our brain function slows down. Our brain really lights up when we talk, when we laugh, and when we share time with others. So, think of connection and connecting with others as exercise for your mind. It keeps those brain pathways strong. Being isolated increases the risk for memory and thinking problems, and staying connected helps that, helps reduce that. So some people may notice more of those senior moments that we so often have, or forgetfulness. Long-term isolation can even raise the risk of dementia. Social connection helps the brain stay flexible and strong. And research does show that people who stay connected, whether it's conversation, volunteering, group activities, have better memory and thinking skills as they age. Let's talk a little bit about isolation and brain fog. People experience brain fog for other reasons than isolation and loneliness. There's chronic inflammation in your body can affect your brain. There's depression, stress. We all had side effects from COVID. So I'm sure many of you have experienced this. I know I have. And you look at the symptoms and can relate to them, but we do know that isolation is a factor. So many people notice when they spend more time alone, they do feel a bit more foggy, a bit more forgetful, and that's not unusual. Our brain thrives on conversation, on laughter, on mental activity. So connection really does sharpen the mind. Again, good news, staying socially active, exercising, keeping your mind engaged, that can help clear what we call brain fog. So how we connect with others. We learn social skills very early in life, and they keep our brain active. And we'll say it over and over. Our brain stays sharp when we keep connecting, when we keep listening, when we keep laughing, when we keep communicating with others. It's like it's a muscle. And these social skills do need regular exercise. So every conversation, every moment of empathy keeps our brains, that social wiring, it keeps it strong. So connection really is brain exercise. It's one of the best, brain boosters that you could have. It keeps memory and focus and your mood strong. So it's never too late to rebuild connections. And you just start simply with a call or a visit. Our brain really loves company, whether it's a friend, a relative, a neighbor, just chatting with somebody new. Every connection helps give your brain a new healthy spark. When we think about effects of loneliness and isolation, again, as we discussed, it's not just about being alone. It's about what it does to our mood, our motivation, our sense of purpose. People who experience ongoing loneliness or isolation are more likely to feel sad, anxious, or stressed. So they might lose interest in things that, maybe once brought them joy, maybe their hobbies or volunteering or spending time with others. And it can make it harder to think clearly and stay focused. Our brains, we know, are social by nature. So when we're cut off, that's when our memory can start to feel that fog. This can lower our self-esteem. That loss of connection can lead to feelings of hopelessness and despair. But most importantly, the message here is that these feelings aren't a sign of weakness. They're just a signal in our body and our mind's way of telling us we need that connection. So we need positive emotional health, and it can improve when we reconnect. We talked about the risk of how it affects our mood and emotions. it's extremely important that we talk about the powerful impact that it has on our physical health. The constant stress can raise levels of inflammation and stress hormones like cortisol that we've been hearing so much more about lately. And if this is increased over time, it increases the risk for serious health problems. It increases the risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke. The lack of social connection from research has been shown that the health risk is as much as smoking 3/4 of a pack of cigarettes a day. Think about that. That is extremely significant. And research shows that people who are socially isolated also are more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. They have weaker immune systems and recover more slowly. So, isolation can lead to less physical activity, poor sleep habits, change in appetite, and all of these weaken the body and lower energy. Studies suggest that chronic loneliness can be as harmful to health, again, as smoking or even as obesity is. And that's really significant. There's always a hopeful part that just as isolation can harm the body, connection can heal it. So when we think about others and what it means to truly connect, it's really more than just about being around people. It's how we feel. And true connection feels like belonging, knowing that there's someone who sees you and values you and cares about you. And it's about being heard. When somebody really listens, not just is hearing you to respond, but really listens to understand. It's shared laughter. It's something that really lifts our spirits and reminds us that we're not alone. It's having a sense of purpose, that feeling that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And these simple moments are what builds strong emotional bonds and helps us stay healthy and happy. I just love this quote from Melinda Gates: deep human connection is the purpose and the result of a meaningful life, and it will inspire the most amazing acts of love, generosity, and humanity. So I want us to now take a look at what it means to face life as what is called elder orphan. So let's take a look at this brief video.
People love hearing our voices when we answer the phone.
They get somebody on the first ring and they're amazed by it.
Providing legendary service.
There we go.
An elderly man picked up the phone last week and placed a heartbreaking call to 911. Turns out it was a wake-up call about a growing problem that has gone unnoticed. Here's Dr. John LaPook.
Clarence Blackman is an 81-year-old Army veteran battling prostate cancer. But cancer wasn't the reason he called 911.
What I need is someone to get to the grocery store and bring me some food because I need to eat something.
I thought, well, I got to have an instant response. And I figured I know that 911 responded very quickly.
A widower since 2011, Blackman came home from the hospital last week to an empty fridge and had no one to help him. In a recent report, Dr. Maria Carney of North Shore LIJ Health System says 1/4 of Americans over 65 are at risk of becoming so-called elder orphans.
It's hard to age even when you have a good support system. So you can only imagine if you don't have anybody with you to help you.
About 1/3 of Americans aged 45 to 63 are single, a 50% increase since 1980. The report says elder orphans not only combat loneliness and depression, they lack assistance for their basic needs. 911 dispatcher Marilyn Hinson was so struck by Blackman's call, she took a detailed list of his food requests and personally delivered them.
I've been hungry. A lot of people can't say that, but I have. And I cannot stand to see anybody go hungry.
Blackman was then inundated with donations and offers to help.
One lady sent me 6 cans of Spam. I thought, well, God, I'm in heaven now. I got 6 cans of Spam.
Dr. Carney had a great idea. Develop an app where you put in a zip code and are told about the local resources available.
What a wonderful.
So this story is heartbreaking and heartwarming all at the
An
same
elderly.
time. And, older adults without nearby family or close support, again, elder orphans, they're especially with loneliness. And as a community, we can make a tremendous difference with that. Let's take a look at the benefits of social connectedness. It's the opposite of what we've talked about. It's all the positive things of staying connected. It can improve overall brain function. It's so important. Engaging with others stimulates so many different regions of the brain that affect memory and attention and problem solving and language and even emotional regulation. And when we interact socially, the brain actively processes facial expressions, tone of voice, cues, responses, and all those circuits in our brain remain active and they are strengthened over time. Connectedness also improves mental and emotional well-being. People who maintain strong social ties experience lower rates of depression, lower rates of anxiety, greater emotional resilience, a stronger sense of purpose. Having someone to talk to share your life with, or just share stories about your life and your day, again, that can be simply checking in. It reinforces our sense of belonging, and it's goes back to one of those core needs in Maslow's hierarchy. Social connection promotes better physical health. Studies consistently show that people with supportive relationships have lower blood pressure, reduced inflammation, improved immune function, lower risk of chronic diseases. And finally, the social connection increases overall life satisfaction. So people who feel connected report greater happiness and fulfillment and greater meaning, day to day. It gives us a reason to get up in the morning and something to look forward to. It's what brings joy to somebody's day. And it, again, increases that brain activity, which is so important. Social connectedness, these are core components for our cognition, our cognitive health, our emotional well-being, our physical resilience, and a lifelong quality of life. So, what are some strategies? What are some additional steps that we can take to encourage ourselves, our loved ones, our family, our friends to overcome isolation and stay connected? So, build and maintain friendships. How do we do that? Join online communities, explore groups on Facebook or Clubhouse or other platforms like that to engage in interesting discussions and meet new people. Stay in touch with our loved ones. Make a plan with family and friends to connect regularly. I had all my nieces and nephews get on a schedule to connect with my dad, their grandfather, and it brought such joy to his life. And they did it. They had their chat group and they scheduled who's going to call when, and they were excited to do it and share their stories that they heard from Grandpa, and Grandpa was thrilled to hear from them. So stay in touch with people. Engage in hobbies and activities. Stay active. Continue pursuing the interests that you enjoy, whether it's reading, join a book club, gardening, crafting, go to senior centers. There's so many classes and abilities to connect and engage in activities. Learn something new. That's always great for the brain. Music, art, again, find community, go to community and faith-based supports, Create a list of organizations, faith groups, or community centers that offer support. Come to Elderworks. We can help you with finding that, and we have opportunities to connect as well. Consider volunteering. It's always nice to help others. It fosters a sense of purpose and connection. Are you ready for a pet? Pets provide comfort and companionship, but always make sure you're ready for that commitment before you do that, right? Ensure accessibility and transportation. Research local transportation services. We can help you with that as well. It helps you attend social gatherings or appointments. Make sure that you check your hearing and your vision. Untreated hearing loss can make socializing harder, and get regular checkups as well to make sure you're staying healthy. When you go to your annual physical, talk about life changes. You might need some mental health support, and openly seek this out, because major life changes, even aging, can just cause it can lead to depression. So you could try talking to family or friends, or reach out to a counselor if needed. Stay physically active. Physical activity can improve mood and reduce stress. So look at ways that we can connect with other, whether it's technology or volunteering or encouraging that family involvement. It's very, very important. This next video that I want to show you, you'll see how one organization really worked on the feelings of isolation during the pandemic. Oh, I'm sorry that it's not playing right now. It was a video about one call a day. A group of volunteers reached out, and it fulfilled a need for the volunteers, and it filled a need for the people on the other end who were either elder orphans, or during COVID, they were just alone. And people reached out for a phone call a day. And it was one thing in their life that was missing, being able to communicate with another person. So the bottom line is that I reach out to you with is reach out to one person each day this week, and try to make it a habit, and understand how important that can be to another person who is feeling either lonely or isolated, to make that connection. So AARP has a foundation that's called Connect to Effect, and it's a platform that offers an assessment test to determine whether you or potentially a loved one could be at risk of social isolation. And it has these questions on it. And again, I encourage you to take that down. It's AARP Foundation Connect, the number 2 Effect. And it's their platform. So it asks questions, do you participate in social activities at least once a week? Do you see or talk to a family member or friend at least once a week? Do you provide frequent care to someone who needs help? Do you have trouble finding transportation? Is it difficult or impossible to leave your home without assistance? Do you avoid socializing because it's hard for you to understand conversations, especially background noise? Think about hearing. Do you often feel isolated? In the last 6 months, have you experienced a major loss or change? So if you said yes to one or more of these, you might be feeling some isolation. So today's strategies, I hope, will help. This quick check-in isn't a test. It's simply a way to really notice how connected you may feel today. Many of us have gone through times that we pulled back from others, especially after big life changes or health issues. And we know a lot of this, and we've all experienced it from the pandemic. So, if you found yourself nodding yes to any of these questions, you're not alone, but there are steps that you can take to reconnect. The goal here isn't to judge ourselves or to judge others, but just recognize that it's time to reach out again in small ways and take one step at a time. That phone call, a walk with a neighbor, joining a group, and any of these things can make a big difference. Want to, no pun intended, touch on the power of touch. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. So human connection, it's not just a nice to have, it's, as we've discussed, essential for our health. And when we feel connected to others, we have more joy and more purpose and resilience. As we've said, research shows people who stay socially connected live longer, healthier lives, lower rates of anxiety, of depression. One of the most powerful forms of connection is touch. As newborns, it's the very first sense, excuse me, that we develop, really even before we're born, and it's the last ones that we lose. It helps us feel safe, and grounded and cared for. And there's two main kinds of touch. We call it instrumental touch. That's like helping someone get dressed, or a steadying hand that can provide reassurance or stability. And then there's that expressive touch, which is it's a warm hug or putting your hand on somebody's shoulder. That shows empathy and compassion. Now, both of these different types of touch can release oxytocin, which is often called the connection hormone. It lowers stress. It increases the feeling of comfort, trust, security, and it can be even a brief positive touch, like holding a hand or a pat on the back or just brushing someone's arm. That can truly reduce loneliness and lift somebody's mood right then and there. So don't ever underestimate the healing power of human touch. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. And it's a way that we can remind somebody, you're not alone. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. We want to also talk about the healing power of music. Music connects hearts and memories. It lowers stress. It boosts mood. It improves focus and movement, and it brings joy. It's really one of the most powerful ways that we connect, both to ourselves and to others. Think about, a favorite song that instantly brings back a memory. What does it do? It lifts your spirits. It probably helps you feel calm. Music activates different parts of our brain, and it links us to emotion and memory and movement. You start, tapping your foot or clapping your hands or moving your arms. Even for those living with memory loss or dementia, music is powerful. It unlocks moments that words alone can't. And a familiar tune from years ago can spark a conversation, a smile, or even have you start dancing. Music has real physical benefits as well. It lowers blood pressure, it reduces anxiety, it can ease your pain, it releases dopamine, which also is a natural mood booster, and it helps us really feel more alert, more engaged. And the beauty of music is that it's so accessible. You don't have to play an instrument. It's just, you can listen, you can hum, you can tap your foot, but it can really make a difference. Ways to bring music more into your life. Listen to your favorite songs from your younger years. they often have the most powerful connection to memories and mood. Join a community, a senior group, a choir. There's faith-based choirs, there's community choirs, or there's just sing-along groups, and they're online as well. Use music to relax before bed, or it can energize you in the morning. But it helps us connect in different and unique ways, and it really can help remind us who we are, who we've loved, put a smile on our face, and bring joy to our day. Sometimes it reminds us that we're not truly alone because it's medicine really for our heart and for our soul. So now let's talk a little bit about laughter as well. What do they say is the best kind of medicine? Laughter. It's more than just a reaction to something funny. It's once again our body's way of connecting, healing, releasing stress, because when we laugh, our brain releases endorphins, and those are the feel-good chemicals that lift our mood and help us relax. It also reduces our stress hormones, that cortisol that we talked about. It improves blood flow, which is great for the heart and the immune system. And that's why a good laugh really makes you feel lighter, calmer, and more energized. Emotionally, laughter then also helps build connection. It breaks down barriers. It helps us really feel closer to others, because we're sharing that common experience. And even in tough times, we can find something to laugh about. Shared laughter strengthens relationships. It gives us that sense of belonging. And for older adults, it's especially powerful. It improves our mood. It can reduce pain. It can let us think about something other than our pain in the moment. It also helps us sleep. So watch a favorite comedy, reminisce with old friends. There are laughter yoga groups. These are simple ways to bring some laughter and more joy into each day. And we can remember that laughter isn't just fun. It's really therapy as well. And it's contagious. So spread it around, and it helps our mind and our body and our spirit. I want to put this up as some resources. If you want to take a screenshot of this, or pick up your phone and take a screenshot of this. The CDC.gov has tremendous resources. There's NIH.gov, the National Institute on Aging. The Elder Care Locator connects the public to services for older adults. The number is on your screen, 800-677-1116, or you can visit eldercare.acl.gov. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to Elderwerks. There's also AARP. Those are great resources. And I can put this back on the screen after we conclude here. So today, to take home, connection starts with you. It's one call, one smile, one touch. It's really one moment at a time. Social isolation and loneliness can impact our overall health. We know that isolation and loneliness really it's linked to increased risks for mental, emotional, and physical health. So it's important to address social isolation, especially with older adults and vulnerable populations. Remember Maslow's hierarchy. It really highlights the importance of belonging in that human connection, and those are our basic needs. Remember our vulnerable groups, because they face unique barriers, so reach out. Encourage social connection through community programs, even intergenerational activities. There's a lot of activities online as well. But music and laughter and touch, they're powerful tools, and they help reduce the feelings of isolation and improve the feelings of connection. And remember that really small acts do make a tremendous difference. So, as we wrap up today, here's our Elderworks information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Remember that connection doesn't have to be a complicated situation. A simple phone call to a friend or family member, waving to your neighbor, it makes people feel connected. Joining a group, listening to music that you love, or sharing a laugh with someone that might brighten your day. You matter, your presence matters. Staying connected it's truly one of the most powerful things that we can do for our health and our happiness. So thank you all for being here today and being part of this conversation. I am going to put those resources back up here if you have any questions or want to reach out to Elderworks, please don't hesitate, because we have advisors who can help you and a tremendous amount of resources as well.